What is up, Packers fans? Welcome to another exciting edition of Pack to the Future. I am your host, Brian Fonfera. With me, as always, I've got Dusty Evely to my left. Dusty, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am fantastic. Excited for this draft.
Me too.
As I always am. All right, and to my further left, I have Jordan Peck, the king of swing. What's up, dude?
How we doing, guys?
One of these days, one of you two will be promoted to my right-hand man, but...
Now we're just all to the left. Is there a reason he's the king of swing? Is he just very light of feet or something?
Oh, the lightest. The lightest.
The lightest.
Yeah.
The lightest. I don't know, man. It kind of just rolled off the tongue, and I just went with it, and it felt good. So
it was good. It's real good. I'm jealous that wasn't me, but whatever. That's fine.
I'm changing my Twitter handle right now. Fantastic.
All right. Well, Dusty, I promise on next week's show I will have a cool nickname for you too, and
I appreciate that.
And I will have a less cool nickname for Jordan next week. I gotta be fair. I'm the host of this show. I need to be impartial.
Fair and balanced.
And Jordan should be eating this up. I'm usually unfair, but against him.
I was surprised.
He's just sitting quietly in the corner, hoping you don't notice that you were nice to him.
Yeah.
Well, it has been noted, and that counts as your Christmas present for this year. So enjoy it.
All right, that'll work.
All right. We've got an exciting show today. We are later on going to get to our mock draft where each of us are going to make the first 3 selections for the Green Bay Packers. Without planning ahead, none of us picked the same player in any of the first 3 rounds. So, round of applause for the Pack to the Future team. We're pretty damn good.
Yes.
Before we get to that, we're going to discuss some minor moves that have happened since the last time we recorded, as well as discuss the schedule which came out since the last time we recorded. Yes, it has been that long since we have recorded a show. Oh boy, that's not good. That's not ideal. All right.
Sad is what it is.
It is sad. There's really not been much to talk about. I don't know. I guess we could have done just a show about the schedule, but that sounds like it'd be a really boring show if that's all we talked about.
Yeah.
We could have wasted an hour of our lives just predicting what would happen in each game and just predict the entire record, and none of us would have been right, and it would have been a waste of time.
Actually, I did that last year. I wrote an article about that last year, and I basically had to look at it from if they won every game versus if they lost every game, or else it was going to be real, real boring.
Right.
It's I think they're going to win this one. I think it's just the same thing over and over again. I had to mix it up.
I remember that article. That was a good article.
Yeah, it got dark. It got real dark.
I don't remember who it was, but I was on Twitter right when the schedule came out, and somebody tweeted out, now who is going to be the first blogger or, Packers beat writer to waste their time writing a prediction for every single game on the schedule? And not 5 minutes later, I saw 4 of them tweeted out in a row on 4 different websites. Well, do they all tie, or do I go by who tweeted it first, or what? But it was all of a sudden everywhere.
They don't waste any time, man.
They don't. Whatever. Getting to the football, let's talk about these minor moves that have been made. Again, nothing earth-shattering, but we have re-signed Don Barclay and signed our second outside free agent of the same offseason. That's right. Ted Thompson has gone on an off-season signing spree, spending every dime he has ever carried in his pocket. First, it was Jared Cook. Now it's Laurenti McCray. I know, don't everybody go crazy at once. It's a big deal. We've also cut 2 players. The pastor of disaster, Ray Drew, whose reign in Green Bay lasted about a month, and inside linebacker Nate Palmer has been cut. All right. Any thoughts on these moves, Dusty?
Yeah, I mean, the Barclay one is fine. It's fine. He's not making much. He's a good backup guard. He just don't put him outside. Just Ted, baby, listen, I know you listen to this. Man, just tell Mike, just don't put him outside, man. It doesn't work out well. He just I think he forgets how that he's got feet or something. He just kind of stands there. Like as it is, the money's fine. Backup guard gives them some depth at the 2 guard spots. It's a little confusing in that they gave Lane Taylor 2 years, $4 million for basically doing the same thing. But I mean, if you don't look at the Lane Taylor move, I like this move, and I just wish they hadn't given Lane Taylor all that money. That's confusing. The McRae move, I like. I'm a Florida guy. I enjoy watching Florida. I've been watching them since I was a kid, so saw quite a bit of him in college. He looked good when filling in for Von Miller last year. Made some nice plays and very, 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 very limited snaps. To say it's a small sample size is kind of doing a disservice to the term small sample size, but I like him. It doesn't move the needle much. It's not much of a move, but it's something. You throw it out there. If it sticks, it sticks. If it doesn't, you just cut him and you don't really lose out on anything. So, I like the move. I like him. Whether or not he makes I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't make the roster, but I'd be excited to see him, see what he can do. What were the other ones? Oh, Palmer. I kind of assumed Palmer was gone once Ryan kind of stuck last year. I have no issue with Nate Palmer. He's not good. He's below average, and then he was playing with like a broken hand, so like he couldn't do much anyway. He seemed like a decent fella, just not a great football player, and Jake Ryan is an upgrade, so that's fine. And then Ray Drew is, I mean, outside of the super cool nickname, I literally no opinion on Drew. Kind of forgot they signed him, actually. So
that's fair. Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the Drew move is whatever. That is, the signings like that happen a lot. Not as much in Green Bay, but where guys are in there for a month and they get waived. So that's whatever. A guy like McRae, you like having those undrafted free agents in training camp. I like him. You can strike gold every now and then. We've had a couple really good ones, that have been able to contribute over the past few years. So I like bringing those guys into training camp. So I think that's a positive move. It's a no risk. It's a no risk move. If it doesn't work out, you cut him loose, and if it works out great, then put him on the roster, and he's contributing to the team. So I like that. That's good with me. The Palmer move is a little curious, considering just the depth we have at inside linebacker. We had him and Ryan. We still got Sam Barrington, who'll be coming back, but I mean, it's not a good position. So it's interesting what Ted and Mike are thinking in that, whether their main goal is to upgrade via the draft, or if their goal was to upgrade via free agency and it just didn't happen. So it'll just be interesting to see what steps they take in order to address that position, because it needs to be addressed. With Barclay, it's a fully unguaranteed contract, slightly above the minimum. So my guess is that they're going to upgrade in the draft. They're going to take a guard at some point, probably day 3 of the draft, and give him some competition. And if that guy beats him, then Barkley's going to leave, and that's how I see that going. That's how I envision that plan working out. Maybe he's a fantastic locker room guy. Yeah. Maybe that's what Mike and Ted are see value in him. I don't know. So yeah, those are my opinions on the moves. There's nothing too exciting, nothing too discouraging about any of them. So
what concerns me about the Don Barclay move is it's just indicative of the way that Ted and Mike operate, in that they'll draft or sign a very average or below average player, and they'll keep them around for a really long time, when we'd be much better served aggressively finding replacements for them. And Don Barclay is just another example of that. That's the part that concerns me. But to be honest, I mean, it's not going to move the needle in the end. I was annoyed when it happened, but thinking about it, I had a short Twitter conversation about it with a guy named Rusty Weiss, just at Rusty Weiss. And he asked me, does this dash my hopes of Ted using a pick for Joe Hagg? He's an offensive tackle out of North Dakota State. And I said, look, if if re-signing Don Barclay in any way changes our position toward the draft, then you have a lot more to worry about than the fact that Don Barclay is wearing green and gold again. Don Barclay in no way can be allowed to change your draft plans. It's a recipe for disaster. If we move the guy inside, I think he can be a solid backup in this league, but you have to bring in somebody that's capable of playing tackle in the NFL for depth. We didn't have that last year, and we paid for it. With the injuries that happened, we were in trouble. And, Lane Taylor had to play at tackle. Don Barclay had to play at tackle. Josh Sitton had to play at tackle. And they're not tackles, and we really paid for it. Have to bring in somebody. So, no, that does not dash any hopes of getting any linemen in this draft, or at least it better not. Laurenti McCray...
Man, Josh...
Go ahead.
Josh Sitton played tackle with I forgot about that. He played tackle with a bad back better than Don Barclay.
He did. And Sitton did not play well at left tackle either, so that really tells you something. He played like a left guard who had a bad back. It's how he played. And Don Barclay played like a left guard who had a bad back and no legs or arms. He just can't play the position, It's just putting him in a position to fail, and it's not fair to him. It's not fair to the rest of the team. The rest of the team that has Super Bowl aspirations, you're putting a guy like Don Barclay at left tackle and right tackle. You're not going to get away with it. You're not going to win a Super Bowl that way. So, all right, the Laurenti McCray signing, I like it because it's kind of the opposite of the Don Barclay signing. It's, we have average on our team already. Let's see if somebody from another system can latch on here. It's how we got Tramon Williams, and we all know how that turned out. He's such a big contributor to this team. And, maybe that's what Laurenti McCray turns into. Maybe it turns into nothing, but if it turns into nothing, he also didn't cost us anything. There's nothing guaranteed here. So I always like, just taking a chance on a guy like that. Why not? He did make some good plays. He's a good special teamer. He's depth at a position that we need depth, an outside linebacker, and I don't know, gives us a little bit more flexibility. I always like picking somebody up like that. All right. So those are the minor moves. We've discussed them more than I ever thought that we would. So let's move on to the schedule. The schedule, it's kind of a weird one this year. We start out with 2 road games. I think we finish on the road as well. We've got the first game ever at the Minnesota Vikings' new stadium, US Bank Field. Going to be really nice, and I very much look forward to ruining their homecoming in a big way. I don't know. I don't usually have a whole ton to talk about with the schedule, but it's kind of a weird one this year. And I'm going to let Dusty take it away here. I think we've got some Twitter questions, and we can just address it that way.
Yeah, we've got 2 from Nate P. That's at NJP584. So he's got 2, and we'll just take them separately. So first question, thoughts on the week 4 bye? And I'll start. It's early. I always hate early buys. The only time they ever seem very good is if the team kind of struggles out of the gate. Let's say they beat the Jaguars and then lose to the Vikings and Lions, and they go into the bye 1 and 2. I'm fine with it then. Maybe they got something they need to fix, got a little time to tinker. That's good. But for the most part, you like to see that later in the season just because you've got nagging injuries, and by that point, everyone's kind of a little banged up, and say a week 8, week 9 bye always serves them a little better. But that's kind of where I'm sitting on that.
All right. Yeah, week 4 bye is not ideal in my mind, but I have a positive spin to put on it. I find in Ted's history and Mike's history that things often don't get addressed until the Packers bye week. Things that aren't working on offense don't get addressed. Things that aren't working on defense don't get addressed until we have that week off for them to really implement it. Maybe we have those first 3 games and we find that something on offense just isn't working, and then we can fix it early and address it and just attack the rest of the season with things that are going to work. That's the positive spin I'm going to put on that. I'm not usually a fan of the early bye. I usually like to have it late. You're going to have more injuries the more into the season you're going to get. Having that kind of late bye so you can rest up for a playoff run is preferable. But, it doesn't seem like we have an early bye very often, being the Packers, and it's our turn, I guess. So I really can't complain. There's nothing to be upset about, if we're being honest. Everybody gets a week off, and it's just the way it is. Jordan?
Yeah, I don't think it's ideal. I have no idea what the players think of it. I would imagine that they would rather have it later on in the season when they're, more tired, more beaten up, that they like it more in week 9, week 10. What's actually interesting about this, though, is I had the same notion that, every team, there are a couple teams, there's 2 teams, I think, every year that has a week 4 bye, and it was our turn. What's interesting is the Packers had it in 2013. So it actually is kind of like, well, we kind of already did it a couple years ago, but so I don't know what the whole setup is for them giving the buys, or just how that works. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than I know or certainly care about. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You just got to deal with it. You know it now months in advance, so they'll prepare accordingly and they'll be all right.
All right. Dusty, what else do we have from Twitter?
All right. Second question is tougher 3-week stretch, weeks 5, 6, and 7, or 14, 15, 16. Weeks 5, 6, and 7 are Giants, Cowboys, Bears, all at home. And weeks 14, 15, 16 are Seahawks, Bears, Vikings, with the Bears game being in Chicago, but Seahawks and Vikings both at home. I will take 14, 15, 16 just because the Seahawks are in the mix. You never know what you're going to get year to year. I mean, you can look at that Giants, Cowboys, Bears and say, Giants weren't great last year, but that traditionally they're not down for long. They've got talent. I mean, you can look and see, if nothing else, offensive talent on that team. So they could be good. That's a Sunday night game. Cowboys going to have Romo back. Sean Lee won't be laid up in traction yet. So that'll be good for them. So that they could have a solid team next year. Des Bryant's always scary. I mean, they've got weapons, and the Bears are like whatever, like Jay Cutler will throw 4 interceptions and it's fine. But I mean, just looking at it now, like that doesn't look overly scary. But I'd say a 3-game stretch that has the Seahawks, includes the Seahawks and Vikings. Like that's kind of scary. Vikings won the division last year. They should be good this year. Whether or not they're going to improve, I don't know, but they should be good this year. And the Seahawks are the Seahawks, and it's a late season game. It's week 14. It's probably going to be playoff implications. And the Seahawks, we've seen this a couple years now. If they get off to a slow start, they usually start rounding into form second half of the season. So that in 3 weeks, the Seahawks and Vikings, even though those games are at home, that's kind of scary. So I'll take 14, 15, 16 on that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. There's a big difference coming off the bye week for those 5, 6, 7 week games, and the fact that we will be 10 weeks removed from the bye week for that 14, 15, 16 stretch. And, end of the year, players really, teams really fighting for playoff spots, and there's a lot at play toward the end of the season. Even if one of those teams hasn't been particularly good all year, they're going to be fighting for pride toward the end of the year. So, coming off of a bye week, I think we have a good advantage for the 5, 6, 7 stretch. Not so for the end of the season. It's going to be cold, and teams are going to be fighting. I easily say 14, 15, 16. Jordan?
Yeah, I completely agree. Just looking at the 5, 6, 7 games, you talk about offensive ability. They have weapons. They have we talk about the Giants and Cowboys. They got 2 of the better receivers in the game with Odell Beckham and Des Bryant, and usually those kinds of receivers usually give the Packers trouble. That's an issue, but as a whole, we're better than these teams. For me, I hate playing Seattle. I'll always hate playing Seattle. So that's that game. That opponent, as long as Wilson is their quarterback, is always going to scare me. There's just something about that guy that is terrifying whenever we go up against him. So yeah, late in the season, it's certainly more crucial than the earlier stretch of games. So yeah, I agree. I think it's just they're tougher games, they're more important games. So it's definitely a tougher stretch late in the season.
So one more point before we move on, talking about the schedule, is just the way people waste their time. Just don't do this at home, kids. Stop talking about last year's records and combined records of our opponents this year to talk about strength of schedule for the upcoming season. It doesn't make any sense. It's a complete waste of time. Save your breath. Just ESPN tweeted it out how the Packers are going to have the easiest strength of schedule this year because of last year's records. And that just, it annoys the crap out of me. It really does. And, maybe I'm picking on ESPN. Everybody knows my feelings on the evil network that is ESPN. But I just don't understand why it's a topic. We're talking about last year's records. We're not including new draft picks. We're not including free agents. We're not including new coaches, anything like that. We're just talking about last year's compared to next year's schedule. And it annoys me, and it makes no sense. So, I don't know. If you guys have any comments on that, go ahead. I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, I never really trust Football Outsiders and their football and the almanac they put out every year. They have predicted strength of schedule based on their predictions and all the math things that they do to run through their predictions. That was very technical. All the math things that they do. I work in an accounting department. In case you did not know that. I trust that. They kind of take that in. I mean, they're still off. No one's perfect, but they take in a lot of the changes. They take in kind of how the team fared last year with, say, their actual wins versus expected wins based on the score, basically point differential. So I trust that when that comes out. But until then, yeah, I'm with you. I don't really pay any attention to that. I mean, the schedule looks favorable for the Packers this year, but I don't put much stock in that at all. I usually wait until Football Outsiders releases theirs before I really start getting too excited about anything.
Dusty, I believe the math things word you were looking for was calculations?
No, I don't believe that's correct.
No, that's not. We're just going to stick with math things?
That's not. No, I think that's English word. I don't think that's has anything to do with math.
Sorry, I forgot the golden rule for the Pack to the Future podcast where you're not allowed to use words that have more than 3 syllables.
Yeah, that was a bit much. That
was very I of me. I apologize. That one's on your host. That one's on your host.
I accept your apology.
I appreciate that. That's very big of you. All right. Before we move on to our mock drafts, I'm going to let Jordan take over here to talk about our new sponsor, Pride and Glory Clothing. Jordan.
All right. Yes, we finally have a sponsor. I shouldn't say a new sponsor. We have a sponsor for our podcast. Very excited about it. It is prideandgloryclothing.com. Or I should say prideandglory63.com. It's a fantastic clothing company. It's actually started by a guy named Fred Thurston. You might recognize the last name. He is the grandson of Lombardi's famed left guard, Fuzzy Thurston. And really, they got some fantastic stuff. I actually have a couple shirts myself. One in particular, they have a shirt that has the diagram of the famous Packers sweep play, and it's a fantastic look for any Packer fans. So I think, Dusty, you have that shirt too, correct?
Yeah, it's dynamite, man. I get comments every time I wear it.
So really got to check that site out, prideandglory63.com. The current line of clothes, I think, is limited, or there's limited time left for that, so be sure to check them out now. They're going to be having some new stuff coming out in time for the season, so yeah, be sure to check them out. It's got some really good stuff.
Yeah, we're all very excited about it here. It's an awesome site, awesome clothing. Go check them out, please, right after you listen to the rest of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, mock draft time. And since the number 1 comes first, we'll start with round number 1. Let's see who wants to kick us off. Dusty, I'm going to put that honor on you.
That's so cliche of you, Brian, to start with round one. I mean, let's try to shake it up a little bit.
Seriously, man. Just think outside the box, man.
Should we go 2-3-1 here?
I'm geared up, man. I'm ready for round one. You can't make me change it.
All right, Dusty. I apologize for that. Again, I have a lot to atone for.
Fine. One more, you're out, though. So just to let you know. All right, so I've seen this guy's name a lot. I live in Kentucky. I watch a lot of SEC football because I do not have cable, and so I just watch whatever's on TV every weekend. So I watch a lot of SEC football, in particular Alabama, because every Alabama game is televised, even if they're winning by 70. So I've seen this guy's name a lot. I've seen him play a lot. I'm concerned he's not going to be there when the Packers pick. To be honest with you, I won't be super heartbroken if he's not, but I think he could help him. My pick in the first round is Mr. Reggie Ragland, inside linebacker out of Alabama. Kind of a thumper. He kind of reminds me, this is in no way am I saying bad things because I actually like him, but he kind of reminds me of, he's like a more talented Sam Barrington. He's kind of a little better in coverage than Barrington, but not much. Like he's, say, short zone screens, he can cover that pretty well, but you kind of get him going backwards. He kind of gets a little lost, which, as we all know, has kind of been an issue with inside linebackers for a while. So that's a shortcoming. If they pick him, probably won't be 3 down right away. Probably have him 2 down. Maybe throw someone else in the box on that 3rd down when a little more coverage is called for. But he could grow into that a little bit. But I do like him. He runs downhill well. Very good tackler. Really good burst. Good speed. Good first step, good instincts. If they took him, I wouldn't be upset. I don't know if he's they do need inside linebacker. I don't know if he fits exactly what the Packers need, but yeah, I'll go with Ragland, provided he's still around. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the green and gold.
I would actually really like that pick. Reggie Ragland is a guy that excites me. Having somebody to come in and play inside linebacker for us, I think would be huge. He's got better coverage skills than anyone else on our team, so bring him on. I'm down with that. My concern is whether or not he's going to be there. I've seen mock drafts with him going as high as the Oakland Raiders, who are picking, 10, 11, something like that. So
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Yeah, I've also seen him falling to us or even a little bit past us. So you really just have no idea. So the guy I'm going with, I feel a little bit more confident is going to be there. I'm going with a defensive lineman by the name of Chris Jones out of Mississippi State. He's big at 6'6", 310 pounds. He's strong enough to play on the inside. He's quick enough to play on the outside. Has a lot of burst getting into the backfield. Just, he could play anywhere, like I said, and that's something that our coaching staff really values, is guys that are flexible and can play in multiple positions. The knock on him is, not so much his effort, but his consistent effort. He's known to take some plays off from time to time, so that'll be a little bit of a struggle, trying to make sure that his motor is high the entire time, but playing next to or across from a guy like Mike Daniels could really rub off on him, because that's a guy who does not take plays off, and this defense belongs to Mike Daniels. So if he's going to be the leader out there and affecting guys like this, I think Chris Jones could be a really good fit. Mm-hmm. Jordan, who do you got?
All right, this is a pick that I really hope is there for us at 27. There is a lot of defensive line depth in the mid to late first round in this draft. So based on the way it's shaping up with a lot of the mocks and a lot of the projections, I would be surprised if the Packers don't go defensive line here. And the guy that I'd love to see the Packers take is Andrew Billings out of Baylor. This guy, in terms of strength and power, I don't know if there's really anybody that supersedes him in this draft. His weightlifting and just his power in the combine. What was it? I think 31 reps of the 225 bench, and that's ridiculous.
That's big.
The guy ran a sub 5 second 40-yard dash, so he's got some athleticism. He's got some mean to him. He's got some nasty to him. And I like that. I think this defense needs more of that. And you alluded to it already, Brian, with Mike Daniels being a leader on that line. The big knock on Billings is his age. He's not an old player. So there's going to be the immaturity factor, and just is he ready to play professionally? And having a guy like Daniels, leading the charge and being that locker room guy, that presence for Billings to look up to, I think is a very positive thing. So I would love for us to add this guy. He's good, particularly against the run, which is what you want in a guy that might be playing nose tackle. And he's 6'1", 311 pounds. I mean, he fits the bill size wise and strength wise. So he's co-defensive player. He tackles for loss. I mean, he was very productive as a college player in the Big 12. I think he was their co-defensive player of the year last year. So I mean, he's lived up to the hype. Apparently, he was a hype machine coming out of high school, just with those crazy highlight reels of, just putting guys half his size on the ground. But he lived up to it when he got to Baylor. So I would like to see the Packers take him if he does fall to number 27.
This is the thing I like about this draft, is there are so many defensive linemen, and right there with inside linebacker, those are our biggest needs. And B.J. Raji is gone, and he's not going to be there this year. We have a chance to upgrade over B.J. Raji, and it might not even have to be in the first round, because there's just so much defensive line talent in this draft. And I don't know, maybe even just getting a couple good defensive linemen can improve our inside linebacker spot, just because they'll have room to roam, because the defensive linemen will suddenly be winning their battles. Who knows?
Dude, one more thing about Billings. I just saw this in high school. The state powerlifting meet, he squatted 805 pounds, deadlifted 705, and benched 500.
He thinks he's me.
That's stupid. That's ridiculous.
Oh, I like the sound of him. You could just plug him right in at nose tackle, and he would probably be the day one starter.
Yeah. I hope he's there.
I'm into that. I'd be very happy with any of those three picks that we have just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Round 2. Fight. Who do we got? I'll kick this one off. I'm going inside linebacker in this round. I'm not 100% convinced that this guy's going to be there at this point. I might be better off switching my first and second rounds. It might be a little bit more likely. Who knows? But I'm going Sua Cravens, the inside linebacker, or just linebacker, I guess, from USC. 6'1", 236. Now that's a little bit undersized for an inside linebacker, but he's quick, he's deadly. There's about to be a revolution of hybrid safety linebackers in the NFL. And it started with Deion Buchanan in Arizona. It continued last year when the Carolina Panthers took Shaq Thompson in round 1. And it's going to continue with whoever takes Sua Cravens at whatever spot. And it may be more likely that we get him in the first round instead of the second. I don't know. But I'd love to get in on this revolution early. He would just provide so much of what we need. Athleticism at inside linebacker is something that we lack big time. And he would provide all of that. Coverage ability is something that we lack at inside linebacker, and he would provide that. So I'm on the bandwagon. I'd love to see Sua Cravens wearing green and gold next year. I think he would provide a huge spark for this defense and just give us one more playmaker. I'm begging you, Ted. If he's there, take him.
We've already got Micah Hyde, though. I mean,
Micah Hyde.
Come on, man. You just described Micah Hyde.
I love Micah Hyde, but just associative memory. When I see Micah Hyde, I think of that dropped interception against the 49ers in the playoffs in San Francisco, and we would have won that game. That would have sealed it. But then the Niners went on to score and went on to win that game. It was right there.
Was that the one in San Fran, or was that in Green Bay?
That was in San Fran, I think.
I mean, I remember the play you're talking about.
Yeah.
I just don't remember which game that was.
I don't
If
know.
it was the home or the... Yeah, but anyway.
I don't know. It just makes me sad. And Micah Hyde doesn't deserve it because he's done a lot of really good things playing for the Packers, and he's exceeded expectations. And I just can't help it.
It's all you see.
I'm sorry,
I get
Micah.
it.
I really
get
am.
it.
All right, Jordan, who do you have in round 2?
I'm kind of going a little off the track of what Ted's draft history is. This isn't usually the kind of round he would go offensive lineman, but that's what I kind of envision happening with this. So we talk on inside linebacker. That's certainly the bigger need. For me, right up there is depth at the offensive line, and we talked about it when we were discussing the Barkley move about our need for depth on the offensive line. So the guy I have the Packers taking is guy Sean Coleman out of Auburn. Interesting story with him is he's actually a cancer survivor. He was diagnosed with leukemia back in 2010. Went on to beat it and turned into a really, really good offensive lineman for Auburn for his last 2 seasons, junior and senior season. He's a much better run blocker than a pass blocker. But what I like about him in particular is that he has played both left and right tackle. And when you're talking about a guy that is meant specifically for a depth position, that's a nice thing to have. So if Bakhtiari, is to go out, or if Bulaga is to go out, you have a guy right away that you can just plug into that spot. And I like that better than our current offensive line situation. So he's got some. A lot of people have compared him to Greg Robinson, who is actually the guy he replaced at Auburn, who's had he was drafted 2nd overall. He probably hasn't lived up to that hype. It's hard to do that for an offensive lineman, though. So I mean, that comparison is encouraging. They say he's a little not as athletic as a Greg Robinson, but for a guy that's been graded as a draft 2 or a round 2 pickup, I think it would serve the Packers very well to pick up a quality lineman even this early on in the draft for just to shore up our depth.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. There's uncertainty as to who's going to be back next year. We've got a lot of free agents along that offensive line, so might as well be a little proactive about it. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Dusty, who do you got in round 2?
All right, so me and you, Brian, just kind of flip-flop positions between first and second round. I went inside linebacker first round. This second round, I'm going to go with Vernon Butler, defensive tackle out of Louisiana Tech.
Preach.
Just could really, you talked about this in the first round, I guess it's Jordan or someone, whoever was talking about Billings. Yeah. Just a big body in the middle. Like he's not really known for his pass rushing, but he actually got better at that his senior year. But he's a nose tackle. Like, I don't know, who cares if he can rush the passer? He's a big body. The one thing you don't really see with him too much is he doesn't really get pushed backwards. Like, he may not penetrate into the backfield that much, but he's not going to get shoved backwards, which is something that that happens to Guyon all too often, which is something that in recent years has happened to B.J. Raji all that often. But if you can get a guy in the middle, just a big body, just soak up blockers, and I mean, you mentioned this earlier, you open up holes for the linebackers to run through. I mean, you talk about Jake Ryan. I'm not as high on Jake Ryan as you are, but if you got, say, Jake Ryan and Ragland back there, Ryan's got a decent first step. His speed isn't great, but he does close fairly well and has decent instincts. If he's got bigger holes to run through because Butler's kind of help opening some of that stuff up, that could really make a big difference. So if he's sitting there towards the end of the second round, I'd love for them to take Vernon Butler.
Well, you and me both, buddy. Honestly, Butler, Cravens, Jones, Ragland, like any of them would make me happy in round 1. I'll be perfectly honest. And if any of those 4 dropped to round 2, I'd probably go mad. Although, to be fair, I was also very excited the year that we got Jarrell Worthy in round 2. I thought that man was going to light the league on fire. I was wrong.
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't do that. No. Our hard hitting analysis at Pack to the Future says that Jarrell Worthy wasn't very good. But I was excited. Although, to my credit, I was also very excited when we got Randall Cobb in round 2 and Eddie Lacy in round 2. And I thought they would be first rounders. So I'm not always wrong.
Man, that Cobb year, well, I went to Kentucky, so we wanted him in the first round as well. But grabbing him at the end of the second round, then it was this, oh man, can you believe that we got like Derek Sherrod and Randall Cobb in the first 2 rounds? Can you believe it?
Oh man. Something about Ted Thompson in round 2, it's like more exciting to me than Ted Thompson in round 1. He's, oh my goodness, Greg Jennings and Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Eddie Lacy, and just the list goes on. He is the round 2
well,
master.
Lacy, he even traded back to the end of the second round, right, and still grabbed Lacy. Like he traded back.
Yeah, I was really angry when that trade happened. I'm like, Ted, Lacy is right there, grab him, and then we got him anyway, and all the mad was
I think
gone.
He's smarter than we are.
He is. Not by much, mind you. We're pretty smart, but he's got us beat by just a little bit.
A little bit.
I don't know. Every year I secretly hope that we trade out of the first round. I know Ted's not going to do it unless there's a trade that makes it worth it. So, I appreciate him not just trading back and picking up an extra like 5th rounder or something stupid like that, but he's just the master of the second round. So I will not be upset if I watch that entire draft day 1 only to see the Packers not pick. I wouldn't care. Just load up on the second rounders. All right, we've got one more round to go here. Round 3. And Jordan, I think you're the only one that hasn't gone first yet, so take it away.
It's only fair.
It's only fair.
I have the Packers addressing finally their linebacker issue. The guy I have the Packers taking in round 3 is Kentrell Brothers out of Missouri. Again, the kind of knock on this guy is undersized, not particularly fast. His 40, I think, was a 4.89, which is not ideal when you're talking about a linebacker. But the thing that this guy does have, and what the scouts have raved about him, is his instincts, his vision. So they say he recognizes a lot pre-snap. He recognizes a lot if the running back's going one way, he's quick to pick up on that. So a guy that just has a nose for the ball. I'm looking again. I think he had. I'm looking here now. His junior season had 122 tackles, and his senior season had 152. He led the nation in tackles per game. You like guys like that have a nose for the ball. That's what we like about a Jake Ryan. So we're hoping that blossoms into something nice, just where teams are just not going to be running the ball down the middle of the field against us. That's what we like to be. That's what we need to become. So I like this guy. I'm hoping he's still there at third again. This guy's been projected as high as a second round and as low as a 5th round. So I say there's a good chance he's there. I think if we get him in the 3rd round, it's potentially a really good value pick. So I like this guy. I think he would be a good complement to what we have now. Would certainly upgrade the position.
All right. So Jordan has us going. What do we have? Defensive line early, then offensive line, and then inside linebacker.
Yep.
Dusty so far has inside linebacker, defensive line, and Dusty, take it away.
And inside linebacker.
All right,
Brian, you talked about this earlier with the kind of revolution that's happening. I tend not to buy into huge NFL revolutions until they're proven. Buchanan has been very good out in Arizona, but it's just been a couple years. I feel like there's a way to negate what he has done. And it could also just be that he is a very special player, and you can't replicate that. I mean, you it would have been nice if the Packers could have gone out and just grabbed another Charles Woodson, but they don't make just other Charles Woodson, so it's difficult. You don't know if it's the scheme or the player. So, but with that in mind, I will take Nick Kwiatkowski out of West Virginia. So he actually started his career in West Virginia as a safety, moved down inside linebacker. So he's a little undersized. I actually don't have his size in front of me. I believe he's like 6'1", 235. Like, not a huge guy, but he's stout. Great nose for the ball. Fast. Again, since he was a safety, his coverage skills are very good. He has a tendency to take some bad angles on tackles near the line every now and then because he's kind of small. He has a tendency to get swallowed up with the bigger blockers. But if you get some of those big guys towards the line to open those holes, that kind of gets rid of that weakness in his game. But I think for a third round pick for what he could give this defense, I'd love to grab him in the third round. He could wash out or not wash out. He could maybe not amount to that much. But I think he could also make a very good special teams player, if nothing else, and kind of grow into a role. But I'd love if they grab him just to kind of see what he could do. I think he'd be a very good addition to the defense.
All right. I'm going to kind of stay on the same theme as Dusty here, in that I am still attacking the front seven, but I have an outside linebacker, a pass rusher for us to take in round 3, and it's Jordan Jenkins out of Georgia. 6'3", 259. That's good enough size for a pass rusher in a 3-4 scheme, which the Packers run. Gets to the quarterback. He's lined up in 2-point stances and 3-point stances, which again speaks of his versatility. Like I mentioned with Chris Jones in round 1, he can be used if we're going to play 4 down linemen. He can be used if we're going to play 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. He's versatile. He can get to the quarterback. You're learning under Julius Peppers, and then playing with Clay Matthews for the rest of Matthews' career, it could be beneficial for him. I just love the idea of beefing up our front seven. That's where top defenses invest, and we've already got a really good secondary. There's no need to really invest high picks there. Go get more pass rushers, get more athleticism inside. Get more versatility and athleticism up front. That's what I've done with my first 3 rounds here.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the secondary, and we've talked about this before, secondary is bonkers good. It was good last year. Has a tendency, it could get better this year. So yeah, I mean, if they get that front 7 shored up, man, this defense could be something to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. All right. Any more thoughts on the draft?
I'm excited, man. Just get here already,
Oh man, I'm going to buy a number of wings that can only be described as ungodly, and I'm just gonna veg out, man. I'm gonna sit on the couch for 2 straight days and just soak up as much draft coverage as I possibly can. 50-50 on whether or not I'm going into work on Friday. I can say that because I know my boss does not listen to this podcast. This would be a bad week for her to start. And I'm excited. I love this time of year. The mock drafts are over. The real draft comes, and now we can just speculate wildly for the rest of the offseason about how good or bad these players are going to be.
I've actually got a softball game on Thursday. I got a doubleheader. With the way the weather's rolling, it may be rained out. So
here's hoping.
I hope that doesn't happen, but at the same time, wouldn't be mad if it did. But if we do play, I'm the coach of that team, man. I'm just gonna bench someone and just say, you sit there with the phone and you got to shout out the picks, man. Like that's your job. We'll get you on the field next week, but this week you just sit there and you yell out the names. That's all you need to do.
Now, if it was me, I would be benching myself.
I was just about to say.
I would just be streaming it on my phone, using up all of my data for the month.
We've got some guys that may end up doing that. I may have too many volunteers to actually do that, so we'll see. Before we move on, actually, I do have we have a couple Twitter questions that are relevant to the draft.
All right.
So first one comes from Fred Thurston, our sponsor from Pride and Glory.
Great guy.
It's at FThurstonXX22. Great guy. Smart guy. We had him on before. Big fan of his. So here's Fred's question. with Ted being on the hot seat a bit with fans, do you see him making a splash and moving up to get that premier inside linebacker? For me, I say no. Like, the only way I can see that happening is if Lee falls a little bit. But even then, like, I don't think Darren Lee is falling out of the top 15, and there's no way Ted is giving up whatever it's going to take to get into the top 15 to grab Lee. So I think he's going to sit back. We just named a few guys that I think could slot in really well at inside linebacker, so I think Ted's probably thinking along the same lines. I don't think he would ever do that, and this year with the depth, some of the defensive positions, I don't see that happening this year especially. But what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I agree. You know, if Darren Lee were to fall around pick 20, 21, something like that, maybe you'd spend a third or a fourth round pick to move up. But yeah. I don't see Darren Lee or Reggie Ragland as being that special, and they're the best inside line, unless Miles Jack really started to fall. But again, he'd have to fall pretty far with his injury concerns. Yeah. I just don't know that I see that special inside linebacker that's going to be in a tradable area. So, no, I don't think it'll happen. I think, Ted's just going to let this draft fall to him like he always does, and we're gonna pick who's there.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention also that those spots you're talking about, low or high teens, low 20s, there's probably going to be some trade rumblings in those spots. You got to figure some teams might be in the Paxton Lynch chase and might be trying to move up there, so the price might just be too high even for Ted to be making a move. Yeah, I don't think he'd make one anyway, but it's a weird draft with this. That there seems to be so much talk. You got Goff and Wentz going 1-2. I mean, that's a done deal. And then with Paxton Lynch and all these NFL teams that still need a quarterback, something's going to happen. I think that guy's getting taken in the first round. So I just don't think Ted is going to have the motivation to be spending a lot of picks or whatever to be moving up. So I'd be very surprised if Ted did that.
Yeah. The second question is from Titletown's very own James Corsmo. That's at JKSub20. Very funny man. Very, very funny man. His question is, what round do I go? And the answer is, man, we all know you're going in the first round of the Cleveland Browns, buddy. So, congratulations, James.
I half agree. I think it would be a lot better for James to just go undrafted, and he can kind of pick the best situation for him. And that's going to end up being the Browns anyway, because that's definitely his easiest path to a starting position in the NFL. I don't know. I think I can't name a person that I know that wouldn't start at wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. And I know some pretty unathletic people. So
sure.
So yeah, James, it's going to be an undrafted free agent deal. You're going to be able to prove yourself. You'll get your payday in a couple years, buddy. I promise.
My biggest concern is does Philly trade up again for Cleveland's pick at number 8 again?
That is a legitimate concern.
I mean, you got to be.
Yeah, if they're buying into the James Corsmo hype, like they are for Carson Wentz, you know.
I mean, Wentz Corsmo. I mean,
Wentz Corsmo.
That's.
Are we talking about the draft or the election?
Either way, both.
Wentz Corsmo 16. That has a ring to it, does it not?
It does.
Wentz Corsmo.
It does.
I'm on board. I don't know what their platform is, but I am on board.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter this year. They can believe whatever they want to. They'll get.
That's true. It's true.
All right, I like it. All right, final thoughts. As I said, I'm excited for this draft, as I always am. Dusty has reminded me several times that the Packers do not get free agents, so this is what we have to look forward to. So I'm excited about it. The one thing that I really want to go away is this Deflategate crap, and it just won't stop. Now the Supreme Court is saying that Tom Brady's suspension is back on. Well, the Patriots are going to inevitably challenge that, and it's going to go back to court, and it's going to be canceled, and then it's going to be brought back, and it's just not going to go away anytime soon. So, like Terrell Owens, you might as well just get the popcorn ready, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Final thoughts, Jordan?
If Brady does get suspended, do they go after Manziel? Free agent.
Oh my
Might be
goodness.
in prison.
he really might be in prison.
It's valid
Oh
point.
my goodness. I'm still hoping the Packers sign him. This is the perfect situation for him, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. No.
Is it possible to get in trouble up in Green Bay?
Oh, it's
It
possible.
worked for Corin Robinson, right? I mean, that was Corin Robinson's thing, right?
Yeah.
And then he was Boy Scout his year or two in Green Bay.
Oh, well. No, Johnny Manziel, you know he would find a way.
He would.
You know
He
he'd
could
be
move-
going to Madison and attending the Mifflin party and just going nuts there and oh my goodness.
No, he's gonna get an apartment with Clay. You know, Clay's gonna have a positive impact on him.
You know,
Yes.
if you want to bring in a former first round quarterback to give a chance to, Jamarcus Russell just said that he would play for free. And this is coming from the guy who first overall pick by the Oakland Raiders, and he held out for a bigger contract before he ever set foot on an NFL field.
So he could play for free later in his
Right.
career.
So
Because
now he's
it's-
saying
that's what
he
we
would
call
play
the
for-
long con, Brian.
Oh my goodness. The guy, does he just not get it that he completely blew his chance and now he's 350 pounds and just hasn't played in how long and he thinks that he's just going to get back on an NFL roster? If Tim Tebow couldn't do it, Jamarcus Russell can't do it.
You got
and Vince,
He's got to.
yeah, Vince Young.
He's got to go tear up the Arena Football League. Then maybe teams will start looking at him.
Even Jared Lorenzen couldn't get back in the league doing that.
Boom.
Sure.
All right, Dusty, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'll probably miss the bulk of the first round, which makes me sad. But excited about the draft. Packers fans, you gotta be. I'm excited to see what they do. Usually after the third round, I lose a bit of interest. The names don't look overly familiar to me, but first 2 days of the draft, I'm excited. I'd like to share my favorite draft story of all time. I think I've told it. I may not have told it here before. I'm not entirely sure, but it was after a softball game, and my friend was tracking on his phone, and we're all sitting out on my parents' porch, and he says, "Hey, guess who the Vikings just took number 12th overall? Christian Ponder." And it was just a solid minute of uproarious laughter. And finally it was paused and someone said, who'd they really take? Like, no, that's who they took. And thankfully it worked out exactly as well as we all thought it was going to. Like, that there was no surprises in that pick whatsoever.
Nothing.
So that's when I think of the draft, I think of that moment and just how much we laughed at the Vikings. And I'm glad we did it because they'll probably be good for the foreseeable future. So
We got our shots in.
We got our licks in while we could.
We
but
did.
but yeah, I'm excited about the draft, man. It's a very exciting time of the year. It's baseball's going, but my Tigers aren't doing so well. So let me latch onto football for a few days and just really dig in.
There we go. My favorite draft was, I think it was the 2012 draft when, maybe a little bit early, I'm not sure, when David DeCastro, a guard, was really highly touted. And I was watching with my buddies Kyle and John, and we were kind of guessing what the next pick would be as the draft was going on, and starting with the Bengals pick, I think just about every pick, I was like, all right, this is where Dave DeCastro goes. This is where Dave Well, then he finally went to the Steelers, and I got a promise from those two friends that they were going to buy me a jersey, or at least a jersey, something to commemorate Dave DeCastro finally being picked. And here we are 4 or 5 years later, and I still don't have that shirt or jersey or anything. So, Kyle, John, I'm sick of waiting. Give me my jersey. I want it. It belongs to me. Give me it.
It's the first time anyone actually ever demanded a DeCastro jersey. Like, this is history right here.
I find
we
that
just
very
witnessed.
hard to believe.
I don't. Man, I really don't.
All right. Well, before we sign off, guys, tell them where you can find you on Twitter. We'll start with our show. You can find us at PTTF_podcast. You can find me, Brian, your host, your favorite, at TTSO_Brian. And going in order of favorites, next up would be Dusty. Where can they find you?
Just at Dusty Evely. That's last name is like Christmas Eve with an LY at the end.
Beautifully put. And continuing in order of favorite, there's probably 5 or 6 more people in the queue, but they're not on today's show. So Jordan, take it away.
You can find me at JGPeck41. JGPeck41.
Jordan, I noticed that 41 is in a lot of your, it's your email and your Twitter. And what is the 41?
The 41 is that was my high school basketball number. So as I've gotten older, I'm a little ashamed because it feels like I'm that guy who peaked in high school, and that's how I remember it. But
still wearing that sweatband.
Apparently, there's also more Jordan Pecks in the world that I'm aware of, because I can never just get J Peck or JG Peck. I got to put the number, so that's the number I go with.
All right. Well, don't feel bad about peaking in high school. So did everybody in this podcast, I'm sure.
How dare you, sir?
Oh boy, that's a talk for another day. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. We're really excited about this draft, and we'll be back next week to break down what actually happens, and we'll have a ticker tape parade for anybody who guessed any of the picks correctly. All right. Take it easy. We'll see you next week. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.
Pack, go.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.